I had this idea to paint giant canvases with a bunch of squiggles and abstract lines. Because I knew it was going to be such a huge investment of time and money, I decided to plan it out digitally before I started to sketch or paint the designs on the canvas. The canvases I used were 12 by 15 foot drop cloths that you can find at most hardware stores for about $30 each. I was advised by a muralist to prime the canvas so that it wouldn't eat up the colored paint. Plus, I wanted it to be pure white instead of a more linen color. Priming took forever, and in the heat of the summer, I really hated doing it, but I think in the end it was worth it. The biggest problem proved to be getting rid of the wrinkles. Once the paint is on, they're nearly impossible to remove. I tried steaming it, soaking it in the sun, and I wasn't committed enough to try ironing it, but I doubt that would have worked either. It depends on which battle you prefer. You could spend the time and physical effort ironing the whole canvas in advance before you even start to paint. You could find a way to stretch it, or you could get rid of the wrinkles from the comfort of your computer and Photoshop, which is the battle I chose. And it wasn't as bad as you'd think. More on that later. For both canvases, I began by sketching out each squiggle or line with a pencil on the canvas. This really just gave me a sense of where the lines would end up and where certain colors would intersect. For the arch canvas, I did take the time to measure the center point to ensure some degree of symmetry. Each canvas took me a little over 20 hours of work, mostly on my hands and knees. Luckily, the second one was painted in winter, and if I ever do this again, I would not choose to paint outside in the summer. Something else I had to figure out was how to safely support the canvas as a backdrop outside. The company Impact Studio Lighting was generous enough to send me their Pro Backdrop Support Kit, which was a lifesaver for this project. Check it out in the description below. It comes with a telescopic crossbar that can support backdrops weighing up to 38 pounds, which was a major concern with my heavy canvas. With a few sandbags supporting each stand, the whole setup is super sturdy, with minimal bowing in the middle. I used clamps and bungee cords to keep the top edge taut. Wardrobe stylist Katie Nemec brought a bunch of amazing clothes to the shoot as usual. With most projects, she sends me a deck of her cool finds in the weeks leading up to the shoot, and we review it together to make sure everything will mesh well with the scenes and colors. Hair and makeup artist Mathews did a great job playing with some colorful graphic eyeliners that really mirrored the backdrops. We were constantly shifting the orientation of the backdrops to keep the light consistent and minimize squintiness. Even so, I was constantly alternating my exposure between lots of direct sun and complete shade as the sun shifted behind clouds. Having a ladder handy was a huge help in being able to get the angles I wanted and avoid showing the edges of the canvas. Almost all my favorite shots were taken while I was standing on the ladder. Of course, there were some compositions where I was forced to show the edges of the canvas and figure out how to fill them in or crop the frame in later. As for removing the wrinkles, I've found a Photoshop technique that isn't as horrible and painstaking as you might imagine. After toning the photo in Lightroom, I export it to Photoshop, where I highlight one color at a time with the Color Range Selection tool. I then paint over the selection with a low opacity brush, avoiding shadows and other areas that preserve the natural look of the canvas. This covers most of the wrinkles and gives the whole backdrop a more even look. If you want to see this technique in detail, a more thorough tutorial is linked in the description. In the end, I'm super happy with how the images turned out. It was a lot of work, both physically and digitally, but it's definitely one of my favorite shoots, probably ever.